The Warzone meta heading into 2024 is wide open with a ton of truly viable options. So today, I'm going to run you guys through 10 incredible loadouts with all of the details and reasoning behind every attachment we select from tons of hours of research inside the gunsmith and the firing range, all of which could come out on top within the 2024 meta. I've got 5 long range and 5 close range options covering a bunch of different gun types and playstyles, so no matter how you like to play Warzone, I can almost guarantee that one of the builds I show you today is going to become your new favorite. So let's kick this off with long range option number 1, the new kid on the block and potentially my favorite option at the moment thanks to a very broken mechanic that gives this gun no recoil whatsoever. I'm not kidding, I will show you. This is the SVA 545 and it comes with a very unique mechanic called a hyperburst. Only a few guns in the game have this. As you fire your mag, the first couple of bullets that come out are slightly quicker fire rate. You get this burst, and then it goes to a normal sustained fire rate. And the reason that many people steer away from this gun is it just leads to very inconsistent TTK. However, very recently, something's crept out the woodwork that completely breaks this gun. You just need to put the gun into semi-auto mode, which you would think makes the gun into a single shot gun that probably doesn't feel too good. Well, actually, it turns it into a burst, fires 2 bullets every single time, and it pretty much has unlimited fire rate. You can just spam your trigger, spam your mouse as much as you want, and you're just constantly laying out bursts that can match the time to kill of landing the hyperburst in full auto. But what really breaks this open is that turning this to semi-auto seems to give the gun no recoil. What? Like, there is no way that that is intentional. I'd honestly be shocked if this gun isn't being ran by everyone in the next couple of days, so get ahead of everyone else and try this build out. We are focusing purely on damage range and bullet velocity. We don't care about vertical or horizontal recoil control because they do nothing for the gun. Because of that, the muzzle we're going to be running is not the Spirit Fire Suppressor. This is the one that helps you out a bit with damage range and bullet velocity and also the recoil. We're actually going to run the Sonic Suppressor because it gives you more bullet velocity. So those bullets are just going to snap that little bit more, makes the gun a little bit more consistent to use at range. Then you're going to use the SVT Precision Barrel. It's the longest barrel, so it gives you maximum amounts of damage range and bullet velocity. 60 round mag is a no-brainer. You're going to need this to challenge multiple players, especially if you're playing trios or quads. The optic is a bit of an interesting one. You could run something more standard like the Choreo Eagle's Eye 2.5 that loads of people are running, but because this gun has no recoil, and I think you can do real insane stuff at range, this DS Farsight has become my favorite to use. You can see it when I was in the firing range. It has an incredibly clean dot reticle with the lines on the sides also being very clean as well, but you also gain access to a second zoom. It's like an 8.7 times zoom, and you can just spray at range. And because it doesn't recoil, it's just ridiculous. Then for the final attachment, the main V6 stock is what I've gone for. You'll probably say, why are you running this? We don't care about horizontal and vertical recoil control. Yes, we don't, but recoil gun kick I do find to be pretty important. It might be a placebo, but I swear this makes the gun kick less on every one of those shots when you fire the trigger and the gun just goes on your screen. This just seems to reduce that little bit extra, and this gives you the maximum amount of recoil gun kick control that any of the attachments do in terms of underbarrels, rear grips, or stocks. So main V6 stock is going to do you good. Try this gun out. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of fun, and it will probably receive a nerf fairly soon, so definitely get on the bandwagon. Moving on to close range option number 1. This is going to be a do-it-all SMG. No matter what your playstyle is, this gun is going to do you right. It's the Striker or the UMP if you're an old school COD fan, and this gun is a ton of fun. It is super accurate with the build that I've got here for an SMG. You can definitely challenge people out to that mid-range. You see 25 meters here. I'm able to strafe right and left, easily stay on target, not miss a bullet, and you also gain some of the best mobility, handling, and movement speed of any SMG in the game. Is it going to kill the quickest? No, there are guns that kill quicker than this, some of which we'll have later on in the video. But the Striker is just so reliable, so much fun, and I would highly recommend that you guys run it. So taking a look at the Striker build, I run an optic on every single SMG in the game, and I would highly recommend you do too, especially if you are playing with a mouse and keyboard. You don't have aim assist to help you out, and trying to use iron sights and keep track of enemies that are sliding all over the place right in front of you is nearly impossible. Running a nice clean optic will help you with target acquisition. The NIDAR model is my favorite one on SMGs at the moment, but the MK3 reflector is also very good and very clean, so just pick whatever one-time scope that you like. Then for the muzzle, the Sonic Suppressor S is typically the best for SMGs. It helps out with damage range and bullet velocity. It only hurts recoil control a very, very small amount, which doesn't really do much for SMGs when you're fighting up close anyway, and it doesn't affect any of our mobility or handling apart from a very small amount to sprint to fire speed. So overall, an incredible suppressor to also, of course, keep you off the map. Then for underbarrel, the XRK Edge BW4 just helps out a ton with all of the mobility and handling stats. You've got more movement speed, better ADS movement speed, so you're strafing much quicker with this. Then you've also got increased ADS speed, and you're helping out some of that sprint to fire speed that we lost from the suppressor. The 48 round mag is what I've got on. You could easily run the 60 round mag if you are playing quads. I think up to trios, the 48 is fine, and you're just moving that little bit quicker. And then the final one, I've seen a lot of people recommending this no stock. It goes crazy in terms of mobility. All of the movement kids running around on Ashika Island and Vondel, they love this, but look at this recoil control. It just completely nukes it. It makes the gun so unreliable at anything past like 5 meters in front of you. Instead, I'd recommend that you run the MK2 light stock. It still helps out with your movement speed. You're still running around, getting cracked, getting sweaty, but you're not losing anywhere near as much of the recoil stats. And as I said, this gun is a do-it-all reliable SMG, and this build is going to do you well. So take a screenshot and we'll move on to the next build. So for long range option number 2, we've gone for the Ram 7. This is an absolute old favorite of mine and many others who played Warzone 1 back on Verdansk. So glad it's back in the game in the battle pass for this season. It is a super accurate, super reliable, fast fire rate gun. We don't have to run an optic on this either. As you'll notice, these iron sights are incredibly clean. I can easily stay on target, especially with the build that I'm running, giving this gun little to no gun kick. Let's take a look at the build for this. As I said, we're not running an optic on this, so we gain access to 5 attachments to really dial down that recoil. First one we'll cover is the barrel. I've gone for the Core Mark Heavy Barrel. This gives you buffs to range and recoil control. Just a really nice overall option. I've seen some people like the Headwind Barrel because it does help out more with range, but you don't get any of the recoil stats. So I think the Core Mark is the better one to go for. The muzzle is going to be the VT7 Spirit Fire Suppressor. Pretty much the guaranteed option most people are going to run on most of their long range builds because it helps out once again with range and recoil control, the 2 most important things for long range guns. Then the underbarrel, another staple to pretty much every long range gun in the game, is the Bruin Heavy Support Grip. This gives massive buffs to specifically horizontal recoil, which is the random left and right recoil that we can't really account for. Vertical recoil, you just have to pull down or pull down on your mouse and you can counteract that, so not too much of a problem. But it also helps out with recoil gun kick. So these 3 attachments together keep the gun nice on target, as well as this HVS 3.4 pad. Crazy amounts of recoil gun kick it's giving you in terms of recoil control, and it's helping out a nice amount with horizontal and vertical as well. Then the last thing we're going to run is the 60 round drum. Just get the biggest mag on there. I think biggest mag is always the best option for our long range options because we don't care as much about the mobility and handling. You saw it in the firing range. This is a do-it-all gun. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites to run, and I think you guys are going to like it too. Here's the build. Take a screenshot if you'd like, and we'll move on to close range option number 2. I am genuinely a little bit scared to show you guys close range option number 2 because this gun could very easily ruin the game in the space of a couple of days of people finding this out. So sorry, I guess. I actually got this build from a guy called El Goomtarf, or Goomy, over on his YouTube channel, so I'll have his links down below. He is a shotgun expert, and he recommended this full auto riveter shotgun build, and I can very easily see why. Yeah, not a lot of fun to play against. This is just a ridiculous gun. It's basically built for clearing rooms, you know, this size when you've got a whole squad all camped up. Really, it's meant for this kind of just moving around. no skill gameplay. It's a ton of fun. It's very broke. And I'll show you the build for this. So the defining feature of this obviously is the incendiary ammo, which comes with two main benefits. Number one is the incendiary damage, which means that you're constantly ticking away at people, making it harder for people to put plates on because they're constantly ticking with damage. But also, it makes it so you basically can't see. If you imagine that you're this dummy over here, and I start firing at you, all you're going to see is flames and fire firing in your face. You're basically not going to be able to fire back because you're not going to be able to see me. So the incendiary ammo is ridiculous. The 30-round mag is then the follow-up to that because we just want to have as much ammo as possible to clear through rooms of people without needing to reload every time. The Bruin Bastion angled grip comes next, and this is kind of like a secret hidden OP attachment, especially for shotguns because of the hip fire spread min and max improvements. 20% on both of them just means that we're going to be landing as many pellets as possible on enemies. I see loads of people instead going for lasers, which can help with hip fire, but you're constantly revealing yourself with a laser that's strapped to your gun. So I don't tend to like them. The Bruin Bastion angle grip is a much better option. The Draven long barrel then comes next because it really helps out with damage range. 34%. If you actually look, that gains you an extra over a meter of damage range, and you're only losing a small amount of sprint to fire speed. So it's definitely necessary just to ensure that you're constantly able to kill enemies at that slightly longer range. And the final thing is going to be the demo D50 buffer tube. It's basically a no stock attachment. It just gives you so much mobility, ADS speed. It brings back that sprint to fire speed that we lost from running that longer barrel, even more so. And yeah, it hurts recoil control. We don't care. This is a shotgun. We're firing from the hip like a crazy lunatic. So this is an absolutely broken attachment. This whole gun is kind of broken. And if you're running around this in a squad with 4 of you with this, you're just going to make everyone's life a living hell. So yeah, go and try this one out. Now, if you are liking these gun builds and you're enjoying how I'm explaining and breaking things down, this is basically what I do every single video on my channel. And if you want to see more of it, then you need to consider subscribing down below. It literally takes 1 click, so no effort on your guys' part. If you hate me a couple of months from now, you can also just quickly click it again to unsubscribe, but it will give you instant access to every single video as soon as I upload it, so you can get all of this information before anyone else. So yeah, go and subscribe. Moving on to long range option number 3, it's going to be the Pulemiot LMG. This one isn't really a surprise anymore because tons of people have been running this inside of tournaments and pub stomping with it. It is such a reliable full auto option because it does crazy damage. It has very little recoil, as you can see, very, very manageable. But also when you put that conversion kit on, which I'll show you in the loadout, you are absolutely moving with this thing. Like, how does an LMG move and handle this quick? You are moving quicker than you would with most ARs when you build them out with a big long barrel and a bit of a heavier stock and something like that. You're just flying. This gun it's so much fun. It's so reliable. You definitely need to try this one out if you like full auto guns. For the build on this, most of this is pretty set in stone at the moment. The conversion kit is an absolute must. Just the most ridiculous buffs to everything we care about with only a small amount of reduction to damage range, but you are gaining fire rate, which is unheard of pretty much on every attachment in the game. So you're gaining substantial TTK by running this, as well as just movement and recoil and everything. It's so busted. Then we're going to run the Spirit Fire Suppressor, the standard for our long range options, as we've already covered before. Gives you that staying off the map capability, as well as nice recoil control and effective damage range improvements. The Annihilator long barrel. This just pushes out damage range and bullet velocity, but pretty substantial amounts. 34%, almost 20%. Very, very good. Definitely want to run that. The Bruin Heavy Support, pretty much the go-to option in terms of giving the gun that nice amount of stability, makes it shake around a lot less. Really, really like running that on this gun. Then for the optic, you could just run with the Corio Eagle's Eye 2.5. I tend to steer away from this one because I don't like the lack of a dot in the middle. I believe it was Iceman Isaac who said a very similar thing. I know that a lot of the dot reticle optics do shake a little bit more, but I've been really liking this Intlas CAS 14. I feel like it shakes the same amount as the Choreo, has the same magnification, but it also gives you a little bit of aiming stability and a bit of ADS speed because it comes with an integrated laser. And this laser, it says it's visible in ADS, but I mean, if you just look at the floor in here, you can just see, like, you can barely even see it. There you go. You can just see it there. It's a very, very faint green one. You're not going to notice this inside of a game of BR. It's an incredibly clean optic with that little dot in the middle, so you always have a bit of a reference point. I think it's definitely worth running. You can get it from the armory. This entire build is super reliable, super fun, super fast, loads of ammo. Go and give this one a shot. Let's take a look at close range option number 3 now. It looks like an SMG, but it's not. It's a pistol. It's the Core 45, and it's got the conversion kit on it. Obviously, that's why it doesn't look like a pistol anymore. But this conversion kit adds a incredibly unique mechanic, which I don't think any other gun in the game has. What happens is when you press the trigger down, you fire a bullet. Well, that's not out of the ordinary. That's normal. But when you let go of the trigger, you fire another bullet. So rather than click, 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 it's click, off, click, off, click, off. And if you spam that trigger with a little bit of recoil control, because it does have some vertical recoil to it, you end up with an incredibly fast firing but controllable SMG style gun. And the damage, let's keep him still for a second. Yeah, we are absolutely ripping through people. The fact a pistol can do this is kind of ridiculous. And we are also getting pistol level mobility as well as pistol level gun swap speed. All of the advantage from pistol in the form of an SMG. Kind of nuts. Let's take a look at the build. Obviously, we need this XRK IP V2 conversion kit, which gives us the nice fire rate. It also helps out with bullet velocity and range, so we don't lose a load of range because it's a pistol. We gain all that back, and we get that clicking on and off style shooting, which if you can just pull that trigger really, really quickly, you're firing out a ton of bullets very, very quickly. The Bruin triport is really necessary for the vertical recoil on this. You saw that still had a lot of vertical recoil on it, even with this on, but this does help out a decent amount. So you cannot run this gun without using this attachment. It's a must-have. The 40-round drum, just get the maximum ammo capacity possible. You lose a little bit on the mobility side of things, but you started off with pistol mobility, so you don't really feel it all that much. Any optic you like running, I prefer the MK3 reflector on this gun over the Nidar model because having that open top really helps with the vertical climb because you don't have a sort of visual barrier that's ever sort of in the way, if that kind of makes sense. And then the final one is the XRK dynamic precision stock. Basically the same reason as the muzzle. We just need to bring down the recoil as much as possible, and this really helps out in all regards across gun kick, horizontal and vertical recoil control. This is an incredibly fun gun to use. It might not be for everyone, but you should definitely go and try this one out. Moving on swiftly to long range option number 4, we've got the TAC Eradicator, which is the LMG version of the TAC 56 that we had in Warzone 2. Sorry, almost threw up in my mouth. Warzone 2, God, what a horrible game. Anyway, the TAC 56 was insane in that game. One of the biggest reasons for it was the clean iron sight, which we have now got on the TAC Eradicator. And because this is an LMG, a 75 round mag by default without having to run a big mag attachment. Always very, very nice to have that as a perk with the LMGs. And to just bring it all together, very, very manageable recoil control that we usually wouldn't expect from an LMG. We expect it to kick around a lot, but the build we're running really helps out with that. One last thing before I show you guys the build. This does have a hyper burst, so you hear that first couple of shots burst and then comes out into sustained fire. That's what really brings the TTK of this up, and because it controls really nicely, I do find it a lot easier to land the hyperburst on this than like something like the SVA, which we covered at the beginning of this video. So looking at the build, basically we've got 5 attachments here that all help with recoil control because we don't need an optic because it's got a nice clean iron sight, and we don't need a magazine because it's an LMG. So quickly running through these, VT7 Spiritfire Suppressor keeps you off the map, helps out with range and recoil control. Conquer 70 Barrel helps out with range, doesn't help with recoil control, but a hidden stat that isn't shown in this list, we do get aiming idle sway, which is all to do with when we ADS in, how much does our optic move around and sway naturally. You'll see we basically have none of it now from the attachments we're running, which is really, really important with a gun where we're running iron sights, because we've only got a very small area to maintain target acquisition. Aiming idle sway, super, super strong. Bruin Heavy Support Grip is the next one. It helps out with that aiming idle sway again, as well as all of the recoil stats, especially horizontal recoil. This gun doesn't have much vertical recoil in the first place. It's mostly just shaking to the side and side, so the Bruin Heavy Support really helps that with that. We then get to run a rear grip, which we don't typically run because we typically have to run something else, but we can actually just run more recoil control from the rear grip slot with the FSS Combat Grip. Very, very nice to be able to do so. And then the last thing is the TacVert Core Stock. Unsurprisingly, once again, helps out with recoil a lot, especially recoil gun kick. So it just keeps the gun from looking like it's shaking visually too much and allows us to stay on target with that nice clean iron sight. Super reliable. I like to use this and switch between this one and the Pulmiot when I'm wanting to go for a full auto option. Both really good. Pick your poison and see which one works best for you. Close range option number 4 is another Goomy shotgun special. As I said, his links will be in the description below. This is the Lockwood 680 pump action shotgun, and Goomy actually says that he prefers the Riveter, thinks it's an overall better option for most players. It's just a bit more reliable, but this pump action shotgun in the right hands, I'd probably say it's better. I think it is better because you gain so much more options in terms of how you're moving. You are super quick with this thing, and you're also an incredibly hard target to keep track of because you can play this finessing style of play one angle, take a shot, play another angle, take a shot, constantly moving around, something like this. Now, I'm not the best at this, but it's not that hard. And if that guy's trying to track you with an SMG all over the place, he's going to be like, what the hell is happening, as you're flinching him every time you land a shotgun shot. It's a ton of fun, and it's super reliable. The other thing, as you can see, the hipfire spread is incredibly tight on this, but you can make it tighter by simply putting on tack stance, which for most other guns in the game, probably useless. You probably never ever use this. On shotguns though, it's ridiculous. It gives you a 2-shot kill range out to, I mean, that was over 10 meters. Let's do that again. The tack stance power on a gun like this cannot be understated because you can pair it with the movement. This gun is ridiculous. Let me show you the build. So the first and most important attachment is going to be the Lockwood Defender Heavy Long Barrel. A lot of people look at these stats and they say, okay, this gives 14, 14, 7.4 in terms of damage range. Oh, this gives 24, this Bryson one. Well, I'm going to run that because damage range is really important so we can get those, 1 shots or 2 shots at range. Well, actually, there's a stat that isn't shown in this screen, which is way more important, and it's this tube ammo capacity, which increases the number of shells that are fired every single shot to 10 from 6. So you're essentially almost doubling the amount of bullets that fly out of the gun every time you fire. And that's what gives this gun just the crazy TTK and those crazy 2 shots that we saw in the firing range. We then pair that with the Crownbreaker Choke, which gives you 50% hip fire spread min. So it just completely closes up that hip fire spread crazy amounts, which is awesome. And then we also chuck on the Bruin Bastion grip, which gives you 33% and 24% hip fire spread improvements. That's why we get crosshairs that literally cross over each other, meaning that when you fire the trigger, 10 pellets are slapping the face of the guy that you're firing at, and none of them are missing. Then all we need to do is just improve how quickly we can move and shoot with this thing. So we start off with the Sword Off mod, gives you every single mobility and handling stat we could want. Movement speed, ADS movement speed, sprint speed, ADS, sprint to fire as well. Really important for shotguns because we're not always ADSing with a shotgun. So the sword off mod is a no-brainer. And then the Express Light Bolt improves the rechambering speed, which essentially gives you crazy fire rate. 79%, almost double the fire rate that we would have if we didn't run the light bolt. Pick between this and the Riveter. The Riveter is easier to use, but if you get good with this gun, you're going to become one of the most deadly players in the close range fights that you get in Warzone of anyone you've ever seen. The final long range option today, number 5, is going to be the MTZ. And you probably think it's going to be the Interceptor because everyone says the Interceptor's taking over the game and it's just so easy to use. Well, actually, it's not that easy to use because it's single shot and it's got a slower fire rate. But this MTZ 762 is everyone's little dirty secret that they don't want everyone to know. I've seen people on Reddit and Twitter try and hide this gun. Let's let the cat out of the bag because this thing is ridiculous. It's a battle rifle, and in full auto, it's all right. It doesn't really do all that much, but battle rifles have a defining feature that when you turn them to single shot mode, not only do we now have a semi-auto gun, but every bullet actually does more damage. If you don't believe me, let's just count the bullets. Let's go to single shot mode, full auto mode, and let's just fire bullets at this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 shots. Okay. That's all right, I guess. Well, let's now change it to single shot. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's dead. 2 shots quicker. And the same goes at any range. You are absolutely slapping people. Very, very little recoil as well. And all you have to do is just pull the trigger decently quickly. Kind of feels like the SVA that we covered at the start of this video. More recoil, obviously, because that gun had no recoil, but incredible TTK and super reliable because we've got a decently high fire rate as well. Let's take a look at the build for this one. So we're starting off with the VT7 Spiritfire Suppressor. Once again, we've ran it on pretty much every gun in this video that's long range because it gives us the damage range and the bullet velocity and the recoil control, all stuff we care about and we stay off the map. The MTZ Precision Blackthorn is purely focused on damage range and bullet velocity. There is also the Clinch Pro, which some people prefer, but I just don't think that things like this recoil control matter as much when we are in single shot mode. If we were in full auto mode and the gun was, shaking all over the place, I would care a lot more about it. For marksman rifle DMR style guns, damage range and bullet velocity are king. We care about how quick can we kill people and how snappy are the bullets. Then we've actually gone for the Kimura Rin vertical grip. The reason I've gone for this over the support grip is because I don't find that the horizontal recoil is as necessary on this gun. Instead, the Kimura grip focuses on the gun kick, so basically how shaky does the gun feel and look, and also vertical recoil. So you just don't need to pull down anywhere near as much. You can just spray at the target and not really have to recoil control that much at all. So Kimura grip, really, really nice attachment. You might actually like this on a load of other guns as well, so definitely give this one a shot. Then the 30 round mag, probably the only problem with this gun. 30 round mag isn't very big. It really isn't. It would be nice if there was a 40 round mag, although that would probably completely break this gun. So we just have to settle with the 30 round as the biggest one we have the option to grab. Then for the optic, in the example, I had the Eagle's Eye on. I might sometimes run the Int Lascas 14. All I'd recommend is that you run something in that 2.5x range. I wouldn't run any more than that because the gun might kick a little bit too much. I really like this Int Lascas 14. I think it's actually just such a nice optic. But yeah, just pick whichever one is your personal preference. Here's the full build. Take yourself a screenshot of this and yeah, go ruin some people's games who think the Interceptor's better than this because they're wrong. The final build today, close range option number 5. It couldn't be a loadout video on YouTube without covering the WSP Swarm. There is a good reason that people are running this in tournaments as their main close range option. It just kills ridiculously quickly. The problem with it though is that it recoils so much all over the place and everyone seems to build it completely wrong. You want to build it like this. very little recoil, crazy fast TTK, clean sight picture, big mag. This really is probably the most powerful SMG, if not close range option in the game. Let's take a look at the build. So this is probably not a build that you've seen. This is a bit of a weird build, but I've tried to play around with a bunch of stuff, and the first thing I found was this WSP Infiltrator Integrated Suppressor. Bit of a mouthful, I know. But the reason this is so good is because having an integrated suppressor means we don't need to run the muzzle attachment. And as you'll see here, we gain some nice recoil stats from it as well. Unfortunately, we lose damage range and bullet velocity, which we don't want to lose on this gun. It already doesn't do that well in the sort of close to medium range anyway. It's only really good up close. So to bring that back, we run the high grain rounds, which gives us 15% back on the damage and bullet velocity, whilst losing a bit of the recoil control. Essentially, the barrel and the high grain rounds together, you put them together and you actually overall gain a bit of range and a bit of recoil control once you've done the maths, and you also get the suppressor, all from 2 attachments. So an interesting attachment combo that works really nicely. Then we're just going to round that out with a 100 round mag. I can't believe we can put 100 rounds in an SMG. It just has such a big ammo capacity. It easily can clear through 4 players, if not 8 players, 2 whole squads with 1 magazine. So damage per mag is crazy. The optic, as with all the other SMGs that I've covered today, we are running an optic on this gun just to get a nice clean sight picture, and also the iron sights on this gun are absolute doo-doo. I can't believe anyone doesn't run an optic on this gun. It's just ridiculous. And then the final attachment, which is probably the best attachment overall for the Swarm in general across any attachment slot, is the Fortress Heavy Stock. Any build which isn't using this in it, you can completely ignore, because the recoil stats this gives you, 28% gun kick, as well as 20% plus on horizontal and vertical, with basically tiny little cons to things like ADS speed. This attachment is god tier. This is what makes the gun able to stay on target, both at the close range, when this guy comes to a stop, and also even at the medium range. You need this attachment. That stock is an absolute game changer. This is the full build, nice integrated suppressor, loads of ammo, really accurate, really quick, kills just insanely quick as well. I cannot recommend this build enough. If you've been struggling with the WSP Swarm, this is going to fix it for you. As I said at the start of the video, guys, you could run any combo of these long and close range options together, and they are going to work well for you moving into 2024. Now that you've finished this video, though, you need to go and watch this video next, where I take you guys through a bunch of hidden settings that will improve your gameplay tenfold that you probably didn't even know existed and that you need to change.